I love shooting on a magnet. Love just until I don't grab it.
Welcome to Lobster Magnets Review, the channel. I am here to talk about the big three, the big press conferences that you all care about, big ones that matter, and we're going to start off with talking about Microsoft's E3. Now, Microsoft had a lot to prove in this E3, and they kind of did, kind of didn't, in the sense that, they've been doing considerably worse compared to every other competitor. Their sales are well below Sony. Sony has pretty much doubled the amount of PS4s. They got off this generation onto a terrible start. They followed it up by releasing very weak entries into both Halo and Gears of War. Gears of War 4 and Halo 5 have been adequate at best and really disappointing at worst. They just were not the kind of system sellers you really needed to push people. And they both basically banked on brand nostalgia as opposed to having anything really new to say or new to do with the stories, characters, or game mechanics. And they're paying the price for that. So they had a lot to prove, and they basically kind of stayed the course. It's oh, here's a bunch of third-party world premieres. Oh, great. Well, Jump Forces looks fun. That From Software game looks neat, but these are games that we're going to get to play on PS4. So what are you going to offer on your system? And they announced acquiring several sort of mid-tier developers, including Ninja Theory, 3 others that were kind of okay, that one that does the Happy Few. This would be more exciting if they had some new game announcements, but they didn't. They also announced more content for Sea of Thieves, and Sea of Thieves feels like it's dead on arrival, and I kind of knew it would be. When they were originally showing it, there just wasn't enough of a gameplay hook. It looked like it was just too mechanically shallow to be the kind of engaging experience that they wanted. And the idea of getting a bunch of Twitch streamers to hang around on a pirate ship to be your main focus of content just wasn't enough to carry it. And I was right about it, and I don't think any expansions are gonna make that mechanically shallow gameplay more interesting, even if you throw more content at it. So I think that's gonna be a dead on arrival franchise. As sad as that might make some people here. Crackdown was delayed in 2019. Crackdown was never a super successful series. The third one still, even if you need a whole data processor to process the fact that you can destroy buildings and other crap, doesn't make up for the fact that the art style doesn't look great. It looks subpar. Neither of the first or second Crackdown games had really great story hooks to get people excited. So it's a shame. There's very little reason to own a PS or Xbox One when you have a PS4. I'm regretting buying an Xbox One. I hate Sony for what they did to Sega. I have an eternal grudge, but even now I'm seeing things like the God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, just a string of really good software, upcoming as well as what's already out there. And it's really hard to defend Microsoft. They did kind of bring out the big guns in the sense that we got Halo Infinite. And what it looks like is, I guess it's kind of Halo 6, but not really. Halo Infinite, because the ship that Master Chief rides on is called Infinity, and the idea is that I guess they're going to sort of live up to the promise that the original Halo games were, where it would be an open world game sort of simulator. Because if you go back and you look at the original Halo demos that Bungie did before it was bought by Microsoft, Halo was supposed to be the sort of open-ended game that wasn't linear or scripted, in the sense that you'd have these huge alien landscapes, and you'd sort of do these emergent gameplay activities of taking over bases, riding around on animals and vehicles, and the idea of Halo Infinite, just judging by the fact that there wasn't even a story hook, it was just sort of showing off safari, and the idea that the Master Chief and his buddies are stranded on this another Halo, and that we're gonna finally have that vision fulfilled, where we'll have this open world Halo game where we'll have this open world to interact with, and the idea is that through that open world we'll get to do all this Halo sandbox activities that we know and love, of shooting people with different guns. And that's what it feels like to me. Although the fact that we don't have a release date, the fact that we didn't have anything more substantial, makes me very afraid that some people are thinking that we may not even see this till next generation, and that might be the case. It seems like Xbox is in a terrible situation And, you know, Sony's even admitted that, like, you know, they see the PS4's life cycle going into 2001, but it's time to wrap it up, despite the fact that, you know, we're still getting good software. And, you know, Xbox is lost, so it's in Microsoft's best interest to kickstart and try and not fuck up their new generation. And, you know, you could see Halo Infinite being, like, a good launch title. It would definitely be a stronger launch title than we've seen for the Xbox One or the Xbox 360, which both had comparatively weak launches. But, you know, I'd rather have that game sooner, and I'd rather have a good reason to be excited for it, because, like, I think, you know, 343 has been done nothing but, like, chip away at fan goodwill to the Halo franchise. People aren't as excited about it, people aren't as engaged in the lore, the storytelling has been subpar, to be generous, the people aren't happy about the microtransactions, and yeah, like, they've sort of forgot that, like, Halo isn't Space Team America. It's supposed to be kind of like epic but sorrowful. You know, I talked about in the Destiny video what the appeal of Halo is. So we also got more Forza, but I don't give a shit about Forza. And they deployed their greatest strength, which was, you know, Gears of War 5. And that also was kind of a meh reveal to me. It felt more like Gears of Tomb Raider than Gears of a proper Gears sequel. And, you know, this makes me really concerned for the future of the franchise. I feel like the Coalition doesn't really know what the appeal of the Gears of War series is. Because, you know, Gears of War, the core appeal is basically, it's about camaraderie, it's about brotherhood, it's a real sort of blue-collar game, you know, basically, like, Dom and Marcus are characters who, you know, after a good day of, like, you know, chainsawing locusts, you know, they'll go back and go to a shitty dive bar, eat shitty burgers, and, you know, hang out with their friends and play darts. Those are the kind of characters that you play as, and that's the sort of appeal of the series, is that sort of blue-collar working around people. So the idea that the new campaign is going to be yet another, like, oh, we need to run after a mystery MacGuffin to learn about Kate's connection to the Locust Swarm Horde, whatever the hell they're fighting, just doesn't seem very interesting or compelling to me. Like, I was hoping that the next one was going to be like a huge, epic sort of battle where you're fighting in futuristic cities because of the time jump, and you could command robots against the swarm, and you get to learn a little bit more about them, and then sort of get this, like, bigger, grander storyline where you'd be defending the bastions of humanity against this ever-encroaching horde, and you'd, you know, kind of have almost like more horde RTS gameplay where you were like a commander of a unit, and you'd sort of have control of a squad and defense points, and kind of like combine the Gears of War, you know, on the ground tactical thing with like a more of a RTS kind of feel. But, you know, obviously that's not what we're getting, and unfortunately we're getting Gears of Tomb Raider. And like, you know, you can already tell that there's going to be controversy over Kate being the main character, given the fact that, you know, JD was the one of the last one, and all the gender stuff in, that comes with, like, the big shooter space. But, you know, the problem is that JD, none of them were good characters. Del, JD, and Kate were all boring, so you can't really make an argument that, like, having one over the other would have been more compelling. But I also think they blew the reveal in the sense that you got this really boring cutscene of, like, you know, they're just standing in this environment. We don't know why they're there. We know shit has changed because they all look beefier. JD looks like he lost an arm. He looks like more miserable. He's got a shaved head. He's not quipping as much. Everyone seems horrible and miserable. This random guy we've never met before is dead. We don't know what killed him. We don't know how he killed him. We don't have any circumstances. And then we're just, you know, told that, oh, she's got to go on a quest to go figure shit out. And, like, the idea of, like, going through more boring, desolated environments without anyone except for, you know, the player 2 character is just, it terrifies me, because that's not what I want to see in a Gears of War game. Gears of War is always better when you're playing with other people, whether it's in co-op or whether it's with AIs, whether it's interacting with the Stranded, and I don't want to go on a Tomb Raider adventure where I'm away from other people, because, like, half of the game of Gears of War 4 was just running around through these boring-ass catacombs and these abandoned mines and all these environments, and they were just so goddamn boring and lifeless, and it drove me crazy. That game was a slog to get through, and the idea that we're going to be doing that again, like, really, really makes me a sad panda. Very sad panda. I mean, I'm sure I'll get it. I'm a Gears fan. I'll play through it. I'm always up for a new campaign, but, you know, it feels like, you know, it's going to be more like, I guess I'll play it. Okay, Mom. than like something that I'm like actively excited about, which is sad and unfortunate. I hope it's good. I hope there's a new horde mode and other cool shit, but you know, this has not filled me with a lot of great amount of encouragement. What might happen is that, like, you know, I think Microsoft is kind of building up their Game Pass. And personally, for me, Game Pass is worthless because I already own, like, all the premier titles in it. I already have Halo 5 and Gears of War 4. So, to me, to buy a subscription service is useless. But what they could do is that, like, imagine, you know, they launch a new Xbox. They launch with Halo Infinity. That's on Game Pass. So, essentially, you know, you could buy this new system, and right out of the box, it comes with like a month or two of Game Pass, and then you get like 100 games of like, you know, Xbox One plus like a few, you know, a new Xbox Ultimate or whatever they wind up calling it, and that would be a fantastic deal because a lot of futurists think that the direction that we're going to go, since this is like the second or last generation of hardware possibly, is that eventually games will just be played on the cloud. They'll all be played on servers, and we'll just have like devices or controllers that hook up to TVs that access things through the cloud, and then we'll just hook up and play all the games remotely, and there won't be hardware. And I could see that happening, and I could see Game Pass as like a sort of evolutionary point leading up to the point where like streaming games and is done entirely through that. And you know, if you're starting off a new generation with that service in place, I could see that being a huge advantage, because instead of like spending like, you know, $150 on new games for a new system, you know, you just like hook up to this game service and you have like a huge library of past, new, and old content. And hypothetically, you know, what we might see between Sony and Microsoft is that, like, you know, their premier services are these huge Game Pass libraries where you have like the total sum of Xbox One, Xbox 360, Xbox One, you know, the original Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, all combined together, plus the Xbox Ultimate, and you have these like massive libraries, and it'll all just like be archived there historically, and that would be pretty amazing. That would be a good service. But, you know, that would be more appealing for a new generation than it is for now, for stupid suckers like me who already own all the games that are already on it. But, yeah, subscription game passes could be a huge wave of the future. But, you know, Microsoft, you know, this is a software-driven business, and right now your software is mediocre. You know, if I ever get... I mean, I could buy a PS4 right now if I really wanted to, but I'm a very frugal person. But, you know, I start making mad bank on YouTube. Oh, PS4, here we go. I'm coming for you. I'm going to play God of War. I'm going to play Horizon. I'm going to play Death Stranding. There are just more games that excite me and interest me on the PS4. And, you know, as someone who's hated Sony for a long time, it's sad for me to say that. Sony's won. They're doing much better. Nintendo has a niche of, like, making their own games, plus games that are good enough. And, you know, Xbox has shot themselves in the foot, and they're just, like, in the third race. It's like trying to watch someone, you know, who's an amputee race against Usain Bolt. It's kind of sad and pathetic, and I picked the losing horse. But hey, there's still always good third-party games. I'm sure I'll really enjoy Kingdom Hearts 3 when that comes out, and a few other things. Yeah, so the gaming persists. So if I had to grade it, I'd give Microsoft a C+ for their press conference. C+ for their wares. C+. You brought what you needed to, but you didn't quite go far enough. And, you know, we need Gears of War 5 now. We need Halo Infinite now. We don't need it, you know, several years from now. So that's my grade for the Microsoft press conference. Stick around for my Sony and Nintendo coverage. And thank you for listening to my thoughts. And remember, lobsters and tennos, but don't you grab it.